Matt Whitaker, former U.S. Acting Attorney General.
This is such a great conversation about America, our future, what's going to save our republic.
We have a great football player. Matt Whitaker is here. Matt.
They tried to bury me. They didn't realize I was a seed.
It's a touchdown. Whitaker.
Former acting U.S. Attorney General.
Under President Trump.
I'm going to be an unwavering supporter of law enforcement.
Welcome to Liberty and Justice with your host, Matt Whitaker.
Today's episode is sponsored by Save Missouri Values PAC.
Welcome to Liberty and Justice. I'm your host, Matt Whitaker. You can catch our premiere every Friday, 7 p.m. on CPAC Now. You can watch every episode at whitaker.tv. Make sure you sign up for our daily newsletter. And we're available anywhere that good podcasts are distributed. But I'm joined with my friend Brett Tolman today. Brett, how are you?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thanks for having me on.
Good. Brett and I were U.S. attorneys together in the Bush administration. We've worked, we've battled side by side on a lot of things. The first time we ever met, I called you on the phone looking for your help with some multi-state immigration enforcement. I think it was like Monday Night Football, and we had a great conversation and became fast friends. So, you know, you keep getting better with age, and I don't. That's the real challenge.
I have a little more hair than I used to, and you went more streamlined.
Yeah, well, it does reduce wind drag, and so I'm faster than I ever have been. What I found out today is I'm not necessarily as fast in the airport as I anticipated. So thanks for being patient. We're starting a few minutes late, and I want to jump into it. But I think since this premieres on Friday, you know, this week we're seeing some Supreme Court rulings. Today, which is Thursday, we had the New York City Gun and Pistol Club case come out. I saw you were on Twitter talking about that. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about that case and what it means for, you know, sort of Second Amendment rights?
Yeah, you know, the Bruen case is an important case, and it's surprising that it's lasted as long as it did. The New York passed a law in 1913 where they indicated that if you wanted to carry in New York City, you were going to have to show that you had more than just the reason to defend yourself. You had to have an additional reason that justified you having a concealed carry. And pretty outrageous given that the Constitution it grants an affirmative right in the Second Amendment. This flips that. The New York law flipped that on its head and required the burden to be on the citizen to show that there was extra reason why they required it. So I was not shocked by the decision, 6-3. I was a little, amused by President Biden's statement on it, and I'll never forget.
Why don't you tell me a little bit of?
I don't think I'll ever forget seeing a sitting president say about a Supreme Court decision that it was inconsistent with common sense and the Constitution. When this was in fact the most common sense decision you could come up with, and the most consistent with an amendment that grants rights of the Constitution. So, I mean, Biden's out of touch for sure, but Matt, I saw that and I thought, the left doesn't care about any of the merits or the law or the logic of the argument. They only care about winning on a gun rights issue. They want to ban a gun, or they want to, pass a law that regulates that right. And that's just, troubling to me. And it should be to many conservatives across the country.
Right, and I keep saying, and I'm certain you are going to agree with me, but I keep saying that this design of the Constitution, they can change it if they want to put some further firearms restrictions. They could go do the hard work of passing a constitutional amendment, getting it ratified. Same thing with abortion. Same thing with many issues that they just disagree with the Constitution, but what they can't do is this executive order or these kind of kind of legislative actions that are inconsistent with the Constitution. And I really think this is where I'm proud of conservative legal thought, and you and I kind of have been part of that movement. I think Justice Scalia is sort of was on the forefront of that as well. That that kind of put it back in the constitutional box. And I think one of the cases I'm excited about that's still on the docket, I believe, is the West Virginia versus EPA case, which could be the opinion that I think gets to the major issues doctrine, which essentially says these bureaucrats can't regulate everything. OSHA case Gorsuch mentioned it in concurrence. I got excited about that. I think this EPA case, I was talking to Attorney General Morrissey about it. I think that is going to be at the heart of this case, and we're going to get to the point where Congress and the president can only do so much. If you want to actually regulate an area, you need to pass a specific law that gives that power instead of just these broad grants of power that are used for vaccine mandates and everything else.
Well, I think what you raise is not spoken about often enough. The fact that the Democrats, the left, have decided they're no longer going to try to do that heavy, labor, that work that you have to put into it if you want to change a fundamental core, part of this country, the Constitution or our laws. Instead, they'd rather apply, the pressure of the mob against justices of the Supreme Court, or the pressure of the mob against police, the pressure of the mob against, local leaders, school boards. And you see that pattern happening over and over. And because they've figured out that's a way for them to get what they want without having the support of the majority of this country. And I don't think I've ever heard anyone sort of capture it like you did. I like that a lot. And I'll be looking to maybe share that with folks. I'll give you credit.
Please repurpose it. I've been often accused of a lot of things, but never being a legal giant by any means. But I am a common sense Iowan that sort of sometimes, we got to start with first principles, and it's the constitutional structure that we have. It's the powers, enumerated powers, the rights that that are protected. And I think we're finally getting back into that where it makes sense now, because you and I are about the same age. We went to law school, and many of these cases that are kind of being reversed or being trimmed up and rationalized to make it coherent, we used to just scratch our heads. I mean, I remember we spent a week in con law doing Roe v. Wade, and it never made any sense as to the logic and reason. It really, I think, convinced me that these judges can do whatever they want. And as long as they make it convoluted enough, there's really nothing anybody can do about it.
Yeah, and that's an important point, is the fact that, the decisions come out, and if they have manipulated and wordsmithed their way into, reversing or taking, more authority than they really have, we have to deal with it. But now you have a Supreme Court that is really giving a lot of credibility to states' rights. And I'm fascinated to see the turn in this country to allow the states. And quite frankly, it's frustrating and discouraging to see that we're going to have riots, before the Dobbs, decision and after the Dobbs decision. And that's going to be their answer to what, to try to change the law again. And sadly, they still don't acknowledge the basic premise of that decision and what the Supreme Court's going to decide, which is the states get to be the ones who pass law, in this area. And if you are in a liberal area and that state wants to allow for, abortion rights, then they'll be able to do it. It's just not a nationally recognized right. And that should be a safeguard, from the court making rights that are not enumerated in the Constitution. So I hear you on that. I hope that, we don't have too much civil unrest, but, I have family and friends in other cities that are saying they're seeing the warning signs all over.
Yeah, and, I don't want to take this discussion off the rails already, but I mean, I guarantee you that Congress is not going to have hearings about that violence following the Dobbs decision, and what the purpose of that violence and the intent of the rioters, and nor did they do anything in the summer of 2020 when we had so many police officers in so many cities injured, hurt, and just chaos and anarchy. But you're right. I mean, the left has really done a good job of having a small, violent, vocal minority that's menacing, that menaces, if you remember When I was at the Department of Justice this last time, you had, Maxine Waters, a member of Congress, saying, go up and get in their faces, make them uncomfortable, talking about Trump's cabinet. And, we got to return to a place of civility where we actually don't shout each other down, where we have discussions, we agree that some of these issues have to be resolved at the ballot box by the people. And, politicians maybe need to start leading and expressing what they stand for. But this is the other thing that, this is a great discussion. You're just motivating me to sort of get deep in the recesses of, my thoughts. But, I think this is what the left's most scared of, is actually having to compete on the issues. For so long, including 8 years of Obama, they presented themselves as centrists and moderates and people that, didn't really have this radical left-wing agenda, but then they kind of governed from that place. Now I think that's all been stripped away. You see it for exactly what it is, which is, these big city elites that are left-leaning, that are completely not with the kind of mainstream of American culture and society, and the things they believe in, whether it's abortion up to the time of birth, or whether it's nameless, faceless bureaucrats in Washington D.C. being able to mandate vaccines or regulate every ditch and sometimes creek from Washington D.C. It's I think we're really getting back to a restoration of the power to the people and acting by and through the representatives.
I hope so. I kind of marvel at the disdain that the elite sort of clubs in each of these large cities that they hold the rest of the country in, and yet when you peel away their indignation, when you peel away and look at their arguments and the basis for what they are pursuing, it falls apart. And I think you're right to acknowledge that they don't want to actually have a discussion on the merits. You look at what happened in Uvalde, Texas, and the discussion is all centered on the left on things that they want to do with gun rights and not necessarily with protecting children. We're not having a meaningful discussion about what we can do as a country to protect our children. Because none of those measures in that bill, the compromise gun bill, none of the measures the Democrats have been pushing would actually provide safety to those children. And that's what is alarming, is that they're willing to, go a direction because politics is raging within them, rather than be on the substance or the merits of an issue. And I don't know when that change occurred, but somehow in the last 15, 20 years, they abandoned and maybe it's because they knew they were on the losing side on so many issues.
Yeah, you might be right. I just got back from, I've been campaigning in Iowa. I guess, I don't know, campaigning for what? Giving speeches. I had Rick Grinnell come out for a couple days and had him
that's great.
Speak.
What are you campaigning for?
I'm not, that's going to be misconstrued by the people that, love to watch this show. I'm not campaigning for anything. I was just going and helping some counties raise some money. Franklin and Dallas County, did a couple events for them, and went to
that's where it's at, is the local, right?
It was so good to not only see so many friends, but to get around the state and hear what's on people's minds. And I would say what is being reported nationally is exactly what they're concerned about. It's inflation, including the price of gas is crushing a lot of families right now. It's things like baby formula shortages and things that not having empty store shelves. I mean that's a very concerning thing, and creeping socialism. I mean they're worried that every one of these sort of emergencies or laws that are passed are encroaching on their rights and their freedoms, and that's I think that's very
well. I hope the Democrats are suffering, suicide by bad policy. I mean, I can't. I mean, you look at every policy that they are rolling out right now, from what they're doing to gas prices, to the baby formula, to the immigration issues, the fentanyl that's coming across, the terrorists that are coming across our borders. There isn't a policy right now that they've weighed in on that they have a good idea or that they're pursuing a solid, ability to resolve the issue. I can't think of a single issue.
Yeah, I went to one event last night where my former law partner, Jack Whitver, who's the Senate Majority Leader, had the governor, Kim Reynolds, and Jack said, we have followed a fairly simple plan, which is we see what they're doing in Washington, D.C., and we do the exact opposite. So, which, is probably not a bad idea.
It's a good idea, actually.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
I would just quickly add, Matt, that I do have some hope, though. A lot of people ask me, is there hope? And I think it is from leaders like that across the country. And there are some great, local leaders and state leaders that I think are gonna save this country, and it's not gonna come out of Washington, D.C.
I couldn't agree with you more. And you look at states like your home state of Utah, my home state of Iowa, places that are a long way from Washington, D.C., and I think the people get it. There's more common sense and just a belief in the individual's ability to take care of themselves, and but not ignoring when people have needs. And so it's pretty simple. Yeah. Let's go back. We mentioned the Dobbs case, which is the the abortion case that's pending. It could come out any day. The draft opinion was leaked. I expect it'll be different from the final draft, but for me, the whole question is, where is Roberts going to come out on this? I think in this recent gun case that came out, he was in the majority, but he didn't write the opinion. I guess we know from the leaked opinion that Alito wrote the majority opinion in Dobbs. But what do you think Roberts does in such a hot button kind of passionate partisan issue?
Yeah, great question. I don't think that Roberts will be with Alito. If he was before the leak, I don't think he will after. And that's sort of, bad to say, but I've never seen him as a profile in courage. I was actually working in the Senate Judiciary Committee when his nomination came through.
Yeah, and we were told that he was a conservative.
Yep. I remember joking with
the conservative.
I was joking with Reed O'Connor at the time, who's now a federal judge in Texas, and I said, I kind of got a feeling that this guy is way too smooth. He was just untouchable in his hearing, and he had an answer that satisfied everyone. And I said, that doesn't seem to me that a hardcore conservative is getting put on the court if he's not upsetting or riling up the left. And Reed agreed, and it turns out it was true. Every tough issue, Roberts has disappointed.
Yeah.
So we'll see what he does. But there's hope that it's more than a 5-4, but I doubt it.
Yeah, I would agree. I share your pessimism for where Roberts is going to come out. Hopeful that maybe he joins in the outcome, but creates his own framework. But I thought Alito's opinion, and quite frankly Thomas's opinion in this Second Amendment case, were very well reasoned. I would encourage even non-lawyers to go read these opinions when they're available, because I like to say I'm a lawyer because I can read, but I mean, obviously I know how it fits together and understand how the system works. However, I think every citizen should read these important Supreme Court cases because they'll understand, the reasoning and logic behind it.
Yeah, and I wish more that are on the left would actually read them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would venture a guess 9 out of 10 that are going to be rioting or picketing or will not read the decision.
Yeah, you're right. So what keeps you busy right now, Brad? What are you up to? I know you have your ranch that you like to spend a lot of time on. And
I do.
Twitter
I haven't been spending as much time as I'd like to with the horses. Matt, I guess I never thought, I loved my time in DOJ and, spent over a decade as an AUSA and then 4 years as a U.S. attorney and loved that. I never really thought, though, I would have a job that I enjoyed more. And I think I do now. I'm executive director of Right on Crime, which is a conservative organization that really wants to change the criminal justice system, but not like the left has been doing. Instead, I think there are adjustments and changes that can be made where we preserve public safety. And that's been fun for me to work with governors like Governor Stitt in Oklahoma and Governor Reeves in Mississippi and Governor DeSantis and Governor Abbott. These are well-meaning conservatives who know that the criminal justice system needs accountability. We certainly need to punish bad and violent criminals, but every American in this country has had a touch with the criminal justice system, or someone close to them has. And so I think we all know that we can't continue down this path of such high incarceration without an emphasis on reducing the crime rate and recidivism.
Yeah.
And so that's our focus. And I'll continue to do it until I guess I'm more gray and something else comes
Even
along. But I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little furrier.
Yeah. I wonder if criminal justice reform is the right term for the projects that you work on, because I think
we've strayed away from it.
Yeah, I think we've seen what sort of these Soros prosecutors in places like San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, Washington, D.C., how they have really perverted the banner of criminal justice reform into something that is really anti-public safety more than criminal justice reform. It is putting, demoralizing the police. You have the New York prosecutor, just as one example, detaining or not prosecuting 80% of the gun crimes, and yet they have shooting problem. Well, I mean the logic makes no sense. If you want to get trigger pullers off the streets, you should prosecute the people that have guns illegally.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Gascon in LA, you look at New York and San Francisco. This isn't reform. What it is an overtaking of those positions by individuals who have a fundamental core problem with the fabric of this country. And so they go into the job and they decide, hey, here's a cross-section of the population that's been picked on historically by the police and by prosecutors, so now we'll cut them slack and we're not going to prosecute anything. And what you see is a lot of those are communities of color where they're actually asking for more police presence and better prosecutions in these communities because crime rises so fast and they become victims of those crimes. And it's an ignorant and offensive position, I think, for you and me who value what we did as prosecutors. It's very offensive to watch them sort of tout this as enlightened efforts on their part, when we know if you can't keep your community safe, the basic function of government has failed.
Right, I agree. So Right on Crime's a national organization. You've been running it for, I think, a couple years now almost. Yeah,
we are, we're in 11 states. When I started, we were in 5. We hope to be in over 20 states, and our goal is to be in all the conservative states. We want to be there first because we think conservatives ought to be the ones that take control of, making any change or holding the justice system accountable. And, a lot of people don't realize you can reduce crime and reduce recidivism through listening and learning from all the other states that are working on these issues. I mean, the First Step Act that you and I were part of working on, that came as a result of some changes in Texas where they incentivized inmates to work some of their time off by, bettering themselves and, getting job training and education. And that was, brilliant. And I think, President Trump was right to try to do that on a national scale.
Yeah, and we know, this is the nice thing about the federal Department of Justice is you have, the Bureau of Justice Statistics and you have data, and you can see outcomes after you put people through programs. And that's, I think one of the most important things, and one of the things that, I think I was a voice for is, I agree. Let's let people get, better themselves, teach them skills. So, we know that the way to reduce recidivism is, obviously job training, which is a huge emphasis right now in the conservative version of criminal justice reform, and drug treatment, and kind of life skills. I mean, those are so important. A lot of these people don't have the ability to function in society because they never learned how to take care of themselves, how to resolve conflict, those kind of things. So
yeah, we just started a program where we've done it in Mississippi. We're going to do it in Florida here soon. We've done it in Kentucky and in Texas. And it's very simple. We pull together leaders of companies in the area, large and small companies, and we bring them in and we have them meeting with folks that are in corrections, folks that are in groups that are involved in reentry reform and that. Mm-hmm. And their whole focus is just how do we employ more of those that are getting out of prison. And they have just exploded with enthusiasm. I see these leaders of massive companies that have been participating with us on this and saying, hey, we have a huge workforce shortage, and this is going to answer a lot of our problems. And so it's things like that can be done, and you're not compromising, you're increasing public safety.
Right. Well, I mean, that's you're doing great work. I'm proud to call you my friend. I look forward to coming
Likewise.
out and being at your ranch sometime soon. Last time I was out, we just weren't able to connect, but we will.
Look forward to it.
We'll do it again soon. I love the mountains in the summer, especially, and I look forward to it. All right. Well, thanks for being on the show. And this is Liberty and Justice. You can catch us Fridays, 7 p.m. CPAC Now. Otherwise, at Whitaker.tv or anywhere podcasts can be found. Until next time.